Order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We do have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. And the first item then would be consider the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of the City Council as well as a budget work session. Both of those were held on August 23rd, and the council has the minutes of both of those meetings. Are there any corrections?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Russ to approve the minutes as they have been presented. We'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 2 is consider the authorization to purchase a wide area mower for the Parks Department. With us tonight is Preston Stensrud to present this request from the Parks Department. Welcome, Preston.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is a request to replace our 2015 wide area mower, commonly seen out at Independence Park. It's a 12-foot cut mower and currently has about 2,700 hours on. The first half of this mower was in the CIP last year in 2021, and the second half of the mower was in the budget this year in 2022. We had originally looked to purchase or order this mower this spring, and at that time with all the supply issues going on, John Deere was not accepting orders for this mower. And then September 1st, an allocation window opened up to kind of place orders for these. We don't have a timeline of when it would get here, probably somewhere in the 6 to 8 month range. But anyways, Kibble has spoken for us for one of those allocated mowers that we can certainly back out of too, but I wanted to at least get our name on the list because I think Kibble was allocated to throughout all of their dealerships. With that, and during that time frame, I had also looked into a similar mower from Toro and another mower with 12-foot cut from Jacobson. The closest one of those two was over $25,000 higher than this mower and significantly less trade-in just because a lot of those dealers don't want a John Deere. A Toro dealer doesn't want a John Deere and a Jacobson and vice versa. Also, this allows us to buy local. And it is our most heavily used mower, as you can tell, with 2,700 hours on it in 8 years. So with that, I mean, $64,500 is our purchase price after government discount. $18,500 is what they're allowing on trade. And we would, I have on here an option to add an additional 2-year warranty for that $4,915 because there's a lot of mechanical components to these mowers. There's 7 rotating blades on it. It's all hydraulic. I kind of asked them just like with the hydrostatic pump, it's a $20,000 repair if that hydro goes out, and that's what runs the entire mower, the decks, the drivetrain, everything. It's 4-wheel drive and just a really essential piece of equipment for us. Also really versatile because it has the 3 decks. You can put one deck up and the other 2 will keep mowing. Jacobson and Toro's, when you raise one deck, all decks shut off. It's all on, all off. So when you get into areas where they're, along poles of parking lots or trees, et cetera, it gives you some versatility. Mowing kind of like out at Victory Park on the Highway 23 ditch, et cetera, comes in kind of handy where other mowers with the cabs are really top heavy and not supposed to be going on those types of terrains. With that, I kind of put some other pricing together. So I checked on leasing, not really leasing, I guess. It'd be like our other mower program where we would buy it, trade it in each year, every 2 years. They said it would be $7,500 per year at the least. Amount, so could exceed that. These mowers went up 5% this year in cost. The 6-foot mowers that we've been purchasing went up 22% in cost. So he hasn't done that with this kind of a mower before, but that's where he thought it would be. So then I got to think, maybe we could buy 2 6-foot mowers instead of one of these mowers, which on paper, the price per mower would be cheaper. However, we'd have to have an additional employee. That once I figured out, we'd be able to have an employee run a mower for 200 hours before we'd be break even, or we'd be losing money. That's not even 1 month of the summer. So that doesn't seem like an economical choice. So we're kind of back to what gives us the most efficiency would be having this 12-foot mower. Currently, with what our trade-in price is, the $46,000 divided by the 8 summers we've used it, it's like $5,600. It's costing us a year to operate this mower versus leasing it every year for $7,500. So kind of running all the numbers, this makes the most economical sense to me. And also, like I said, very important piece of equipment to our operations. So.
Okay, thank you, Preston. Questions for Preston?
I have a couple. I'm not a big fan of extended warranties, and it doesn't cover wear parts. So you take out your brakes, your spindles, all that, because those are wear parts. What other trouble would you have had with the mower you currently own?
The rear ends on these mowers go out often. It's about for sure every 2 years or every third year replace it. We've done that regularly now, and then it's just all the hydraulic parts that would go. Brakes aren't an issue on the mower. We've never done anything to the brakes, but it'd be your normal, like belts and tires essentially wouldn't be covered. So,
Oh, well, the spindles, I'm assuming, are wear parts too on the blade. But you said the rear end because after 3 years, it's no longer covered because of the 2-year warranty. I've just never been a fan of it. That's $5,000. What does the rear end cost?
I think the last time we did it was like $2,700.
So you could do 2 rear ends for the cost of this extended
Could, yep. And then other stuff, but yeah, it's just an option. We've never done it before, so it's just
I've just never been a fan of them. I don't, your product should last long enough.
Yep.
The only option that I think the interest in the extended warranty would be the electronics. These are pretty substantial on electronics. That's kind of the boogeyman in my book. But other than that, I know that's the thing that I think is probably the worst for vehicle stuff. I bought them on my last 2 trucks, and it's paid off for me just with the electronic issues.
Other questions for Preston?
Preston, first of all, I commend you for putting in the total amount in 2 years budgets, because it's a lot easier to balance things a little bit. I question why we can't get a few more years out of this mower. That's my first question, because I would think, even 10 years doesn't sound like a lot of years to mow. You're averaging 300, it's about 300 hours a year, 400 hours a year. And then again, I go with Jim. It comes with a basic warranty of 2 years, 1,000 hours. So basically, for 2 more years, we're paying $5,000, correct?
Yep, correct.
And I'm going to go back and to your lease. You said approximately $7,500 a year?
Yep.
And includes all maintenance?
Nope.
Any
It would just
hydraulics?
be warranty, but not maintenance. We'd still do oil change, tires, et cetera.
Okay, stuff, but if something goes out major, would it be just like the other mowers, it would be
Correct.
covered?
Yep.
So why wouldn't we lease it
We,
for $7,500 a year and replace it?
if that's what we want to do, I'm fine with that. I just figured out the years that we've had it for 8 and divided it out. We're $2,000 a year cheaper
And the only
if
reason
we
I say-
don't do the warranty, because we haven't done that in
You
the
know,
past.
I was pretty adamant when you came and told us about the other mowers, I was opposed to it, but I think it's proven to not only myself, but maybe other council members that that's a very beneficial program.
Right.
And I don't think there's a council member sitting up here that would argue that against that. I just look at maybe this is like you said, a mower that is used extensively in our largest park and used a lot. Why wouldn't we consider leasing instead of buying it?
But you don't have a firm price on that lease.
Nope, because they haven't done it before. We would still have to buy it this time for 46, and then we'd trade it in every year for 7,500.
Also, the leasing is not an option this time.
Nope, not just a lease. We own it, and if we ever want to get out, it's ours. If we want to trade it in every year, $7,500.
Our other mowers are like that too, Russ.
Yep.
We buy them all right, and we just trade them off every 2 years.
Right, for a fixed price
The equipment review looked at this, just curious, and their recommendation?
to go. That's why it's been in the plan.
Okay.
Any other questions? Go
Well,
ahead.
question, actually, that was a question I had, Jim, was on the warranty. And as far as equipment review, did you
We didn't have a
discuss the
position on the warranty.
Yeah.
You did not discuss.
And I'm fine either way on the warranty. I know it's our highest maintenance item of a piece of equipment.
Yeah.
We've gotten lucky. We've had no huge dollar items. I've just thought, I'll just throw it out there just for information. I'm fine either way. So,
And I would consider that luck. I think John Deere's pretty good equipment. I think that's just, they make good equipment, and I think warranties that's just a pure profit thing.
yep. Nope. And I'm fine with that. It'd be 46 without the warranty, an additional $4,915.
And budgets what they are, would you anticipate this mower going up 10% in price?
Yeah, and our last year, when we priced this to John Deere, had we been able to order it this spring, we were going to get 25,000 in trade, and I think their mower was 56. So we took a big swing in one season.
Any other questions?
Well, the last question I have, and this kind of pertains to Sharon too, is Sharon had mentioned this wasn't in the budget, but that money got spent. Part of it did. And Sharon, you can help elaborate, is where would we find the money? Because I don't want to go over budget. I mean, where are we taking from to put back in? I know it wasn't your budget that spent it, so I'll let you kind of elaborate and not Sharon on our conversation. 'Cause I don't know where the money's coming from.
So earlier in the year, this lawn mower purchase was not available, and there was some communication from Preston about that. And there was another request from the streets department to purchase crack sealing equipment. And I believe at that time it was a really good deal, and it increases the longevity of streets. So we had an opportunity to purchase this used street crack sealing equipment. So we authorized that because there is room in the CIP. Come September, Preston comes for the lawnmower, and we then had to secure the funds, but we did not move forward on the bathroom remodeling project, which was in CIP. I know that Preston previously presented that instead of remodeling, maybe we look at new construction and move that into 23 CIP or bonding item, because bathrooms are very expensive. So there's still money in CIP through parks. It's just a different, we're taking it from the bathroom remodeling line item to pay for this.
So that it's not adversely affecting the budget.
No.
Okay, very good. Any other questions?
One last question. Do you think this mower would last another 3 years if we didn't buy it? Present mower?
Yeah, I wouldn't go 3 years, or if we did do that and we got by, I'd say our trade-in would be little to nothing.
Because there's nothing majorly wrong with the present mower.
No, nothing major. No, it's just trying to find that window of where it has some value,
Right.
and before you get too far in. So.
And that was my comment back, and Russ, I totally respect where you're going with that, but that was my conversation about the discussion we've had with the preferential pricing we get as a municipal purchaser for most of our equipment suppliers, and keeping it, taking care of it, like our departments take very good care of our equipment, and then marketing it back out while it still has value and looking at that per year cost. And this was the debate we had when we went into the enterprise agreement, is that if the council had discipline to set a schedule and stick to it, then there's financial benefit to doing that. But every time it gets tight and we go pluck that out, then we don't have that discipline and we lose that advantage. That's why we went to the enterprise, knowing that it costs us a little bit more each year to do it enterprise than on our own, but it gave us that discipline. We're right back to that same conversation again. So we could certainly push this out, cross our fingers and hope that things worked out, and then down the road go, well, now what do we do? Or we could go with what we have here, where if you stay on the newer end of that, hopefully our downtime is less, our out-of-pocket for repairs is less. The annual cost is more reasonable but predictable because we've maintained a reliable piece of equipment that we don't have downtime and we're not trying to play catch-up. I'll just leave it at that, because I can support it either way, but this is a conversation we've had as long as I've been on the equipment committee, that we need to get to a point where we're taking advantage of the power of purchase with the discounts we get as a municipality. If we run it out to the living end, that's fine too. We still get the discounts, but we lose that value of trading it back off as a better used piece of equipment.
Okay, good questions, good discussion. Any
And the last
additional?
question, we may not see this mower till what, next June, next July?
Yeah, I'm guessing.
So we may be running our old mower into next year. Are they gonna take the risk on the trade-in if something happens to it?
I think it would have to go in working condition. Obviously, it's going to have more hours on and that kind of thing. But, you know, if the hydro goes out, I would say we're going to have to fix it before we trade it in, or
Right.
just dump it and we get nothing in trade. But he's standing by his price until that mower comes in, even if costs would go up between now and then, long as it's in good working order.
But he's not necessarily standing by the trade-in value, he's just, that's gonna be more determined.
He figures based on additional hours put on, but, you know, like I said, something major where the machine won't drive, I would say, no, that'd probably not be a fair deal for them, so.
But just so I'm clear in my own mind, if we purchase this mower, it'll be in at least another 7 years before we can look at leasing one.
Yeah, or, well, we could run a number next
2 years.
fall or 2 years and say, is now a good time to trade, just see what the number is?
See what's allowed for
Because I don't
trade-in
know
and
what
stuff.
prices will do and
Sure.
value of used equipment.
So there's a
We can always
possibility,
check.
2 or
Yep.
3 years. Yeah.
We're not really leasing those, Russ. We just have a turn them around
Yeah.
agreement with them. We're owning them and then we're turning them in quick because they're basically reselling them as a municipal demo.
Yeah.
Right.
All of our mowers we have are ours.
Right.
If we choose not to trade them in 2 years, I wouldn't, because our deal is good, I wouldn't suggest that. But
Yep.
we could if we wanted to.
Yeah, that was a pretty sweetheart deal we got on those. And then we use those also. This one doesn't get a snow blower and the other
Right.
things. The other ones run in the wintertime too.
Correct. Yep.
Any additional questions? If not, I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve this
Approve the
With or
purchase.
without
With the warranty?
without the warranty.
Okay.
Okay, I'll second that.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John. Now discussion on the motion. If not, we'll move to a vote on the motion. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to the consent agenda. We'll bring the items up on the screen that are on the consent agenda this evening. And we'll make it a little bit larger. And those items include, consider the approval of the gambling application permit for Shades of the Past located at Runnings for June 3rd, 2023. Consider the approval of the gambling application exempt permit for SMSU Baseball for an event on January 11, 2023. Consider the application for exempt permit for the SMSU Mustangs at SMSU for December 17, 2022. Consider the application for a gambling exempt permit for SMSU softball at SMSU for an event on December 16, 2022. Consider the approval of the gambling application permit for Southwest Minnesota Ducks Unlimited and Marshall Golf Club for an event October 14th. Wait till it stops moving. So consider the approval of the temporary on-sale liquor license for SMSU for the SMSU Gala for November 5th, 2022. Surplus equipment for the Marshall Fire Department. Consider the approval of the contract between the state of Minnesota and Marshall Fire Department. Consider renewal of the MMUA service agreement for a safety program services. Consider the approval of an amendment to the personnel policy manual for the maximum allowable reimbursement for per diem rates. For the project for the airport snow removal equipment building, the acknowledgement of the acceptance of the FAA grant agreement for the funding and the site building design, the HVAC license ordinance for mechanical and HVAC construction. Consider the introduction of the ordinance and calling for the public hearing. Consider the annual agreements for renewal with Lutheran Social Services and Marshall Area Senior Citizens for 2023. The State of Minnesota Joint Powers Agreement for the CJDN. Consider the approval of the premises permit for the Milroy Baseball Association for Tavern 507, and then finally consider the approval of the bills and the project payments. So is there any item on the consent agenda any member wants removed for purposes of separate discussion?
Item number 14.
Any other item? If not, I would entertain a motion for the remaining items on the consent agenda.
So move. Oops.
Motion by Russ, seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 14, the mechanical and HVAC licenses, the introduction of the ordinance and calling for the public hearing. Jim?
What was the call for the public hearing?
Calling for the public hearing.
Then never mind. Did I make a motion to approve it? It's just, we'll talk about it next week. Don't need to.
Second that.
Jim, seconded by
second it.
Amanda. Discussion on the motion. Ilya, did you want to say anything about this now? You don't have, no, I'm kidding. The other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote.
You were looking to just take a little short walk, right?
Yeah, good exercise.
That's really quick.
And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Okay. Agenda item number 20 is consider the resolution approving the changes to the 2023 fee schedule. Excuse me.
Page 19.
Agenda item number 19, excuse me. Consider the resolution for the insurance agent services. EJ, are you going to start with this?
Yes,
EJ Moberg, Director of Services.
thank you. So back on June 28th, council authorized the issuance of an RFP for insurance agent services. We did receive 2 RFPs back from the existing provider, Bremer Insurance, as well as North Risk Partners. We interviewed North Risk Partners as part of the process and brought it to Ways and Means Committee on August 29th to get them to weigh in, and we do recommend a change to North Risk Partners. There's a resolution in the packet. The recommendation would be to adopt the resolution in the packet to make this effective for the property casualty program, the workers' comp program, as well as the insurance equipment breakout policy, and make those all effective as of October 2nd. As was stated back in June when we started this process, our property casualty insurance runs from October 1st through September 30th. So the renewal, the existing provider has done significant work on the renewal since back in approximately May. So they would get their fees for this renewal, and then we'd make it effective for right after that. And so then when our workers' comp comes effective as of January 1, that would be with North Risk Partners under this agreement. I have shared a copy of the resolution that's in the packet. Can you go to the first page here, Steve? I have shared a copy of that with North Risk Partners, and they are agreeable to those terms as would be laid out. It's not a contract per se. This is just a resolution that's recommended by League of Minnesota Cities. But I did run the terms by North Risk Partners to make sure that they were in agreement with what is stated here.
Okay, thank you, EJ.
Joseph Larson from North Risk Partners is present if there are any questions.
Okay, very good. I'll open up for any questions from the council or input from the Ways and Means Committee.
Mr. Mayor, just one question on EJ, this is going to be a 3-year contract, 3-year resolution, right? A 3-year contract with North Partners?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it's a 3-year term that's listed in there with right to extend it up to 5 years.
Okay.
And there's a early termination for performance.
Yep, under the terms section, they were agreeable to, each party has the right to cancel with a 60-day notice.
And just the only comment from Ways and Means is we did discuss this, reviewed all the proposals or the 2 proposals, and making a recommendation of North Risk Partners.
We know that premiums stay the same. How do they change? Do we know for 3 years?
EJ?
So those are looked at every year. So our renewal actually, that's going to be effective October 1st, won't actually come before council until the next meeting. We did get numbers late Friday afternoon after the packet was out. for this meeting. And we did ask some follow-up questions about making some potential additional changes to see what that will be. So the premiums in general have gone up approximately 5%. It's just based on what's there. There was a significant review of city-owned equipment and properties this year as part of that process. So we've got more property that's also insured now as well.
Sure.
Or for higher values, I should say.
And the main difference really is the administrative fee.
Correct. There is a recommendation from League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust for what the fee would be, but it's up to the negotiation and/or for what comes back, and this would be, we should see a significant savings with this change.
Other questions or input? If not, council does have the recommendation. Is there a motion?
So move.
I'll second.
Motion by Russ, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 20 is consider the resolution approving the changes in the 2023 fee schedule from our Finance Department, Carla Drown. Carla?
Hello. So tonight before you, you have the surface water, wastewater, and special assessment changes. August 29th, the Ways and Means Committee met, and those are the three items that they chose to move forward tonight in front of council. The rest of the fee schedule is being brought back to staff for further review and consideration of changes that will come before the council for approval after a Ways and Means Committee meeting prior to the end of the year. To that date, I'm not going to speak to as the staff are continuing to work on that. But before you have those three, and Jason is here to answer any questions you might have on the wastewater and surface water.
And the timeliness of this is because of our partnership with the utilities and their billing schedule.
Yes.
They need to know by October 1st, right?
Yes, so they're needing to know what our surface water and wastewater fees will be, so they can send those notices out in their next billing cycle, so.
Right. Jason?
Nothing that I would add unless there's questions from the council.
Okay, we'll open up for questions.
The question, so surface water is not adjusting, staying at 0%, or not zero, but it's not adjusting, it's staying the same as last year, if I read
Correct,
this correctly.
0%.
0% increase.
Yes.
I like those numbers.
And wastewater is going up too, so, right?
Wastewater is 2%, yes.
Other discussion or other questions?
And the only thing I bring up, because I know, Councilman Schaefer, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I believe you and Dr. Meister, Councilman Meister, were very opposed to special assessment increases a couple of years ago or a year ago, but because how do we handle it? We talked about, I mean, even our budget meeting this evening, prior to our meeting, talked about more is being shifted to the ad valorem, so across the property. So just to this is being recommended that it's going up $150, the max, per se.
Right.
So just to make.
And I mean, that's even less than inflation, so I mean, that piece is understandable. I think that those incremental adjustments, I guess I call them, I don't even really consider them an increase. I think it's an adjustment that happened to adjust up. It's granted we're paying more, but that's not to me a wholesale increase. I think it's very conservative.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion for the resolution that would approve the changes to the 2023 fee schedule for assessments, wastewater, and stormwater utility?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Jim,
I'll second.
seconded by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 21, authorization for the project acceptance for the fiscal year 2023 outdoor recreation grants for the inclusive playground at Independence Park. Once again, Preston Sendrud.
Thank you again, Mayor. This is just kind of a follow-up. I think we came on the March 8th meeting. I looked back to ask for approval to apply for the outdoor recreation grant through the Minnesota DNR. We were notified in July that we were awarded and have been approved to move forward in a grant amount of $28,622. For the total project cost is essentially double that number. So we basically, it's a 50-50 match. This would be kind of like we did at Legion Field last year with the two inclusive components that we put in there, except for at Independence, we plan to add 3. They'll go in the southeast corner of the existing playground, and we have some sidewalk installation to do, and then we'll excavate it all out and get some sub drainage in there, and then bring up with synthetic turf, and we'll be adding 3 pieces. So just a little bit larger. I think last year was like 780 square feet, and this is like closer to 1,800 square foot area. So with that, all of our costs go up on the turf, et cetera. Our matching funds for the city's portion will be all through donations, so no impact for the project on taxes whatsoever. So just kind of an information update, and looking to just kind of move forward, with timelines. We don't know how soon equipment will be here. We might get started this fall. Does it stay nice out, et cetera? Otherwise, it'll be first thing in the spring. But we'll get done what we can this fall. Maybe we'll get it all done.
So Preston, thank you. Before we get to questions about this, thank you for your work on this, as well as the Legion Field and making these playgrounds, accessible to all. So thank you. Questions?
It's a neat opportunity.
I move we authorize the acceptance of the fiscal year 23 outdoor recreation grant.
I'll second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote.
Thanks, Preston.
We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 22, the Marshall Fire Department Relief Association benefit level increase request. Quentin, you're going to start this out with us tonight. Quentin Brunsvold, Fire Chief.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and
as well
Council.
as Ryan Serene, who's president of the Relief Association.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mayor. Sorry about that. Yes, before you is a request to increase the fire department benefit level increase. As you can see from the background information, it's 5807 currently per year of service. For those not familiar with how it works is essentially after 5 years of service on the fire department, you're vested into the program, and after 20 years of service, you're fully vested. So it's a tiered system from 5 up to 20 years of service from there to receive the full benefit at the end. Like the mayor said, this is Ryan Serene. He's the president of the Relief Association, handles all of this. And so he'll kind of go through a little bit of the rest of the packet on behalf of the fire department.
Thank you, Quentin.
Good evening. Thank you. Just wanted to kind of go over here quickly. I worked closely with Kyle Kruger at Hoffman and Bropes and just kind of ran through a few different scenarios for the fire department. As Quentin mentioned, right now our current benefit level is 5807. Per our schedules for 2022, we are allowed to technically potentially increase that, as shown on the screen there, up to 6,200. And so we have put together, I think the last benefit level increase that the fire department had was 2017. So it's been about 6 years since we've come and asked for a benefit level increase, which from 5807 to 6200 is about a 6.8% increase, which equates to about a little over a 1% increase over the last 6 years. Again, worked closely with Kyle Kruger at Hoffman and Bropes. We did run 3 different scenarios. So our schedules for 2022 have already been submitted for next year, which is on page 209 on the screen there. which basically shows, breaks down basically the total liability of what we owe the fund of the Relief Association, and at the bottom, whether there's a surplus or a deficit based off of the current assumptions for this year. You also will notice, I guess it does have in projected expenses. Those are basically the payouts for retired firefighters that qualify for that. And basically on page 210, then kind of says more or less the required contribution that would be required by the state at the bottom there, or by the city, sorry. And so that is what's been submitted for next year, and really the next few scenarios, and we can go through each one individually, but we ran 3 different scenarios, one showing basically that the investment account would get a 0% rate of return over the next 2 years. And then it just goes through the expected who we anticipate potentially for payouts in the year. And so over the next 2 years past as well. And again, just shows potentially what the city would be required to add to the fund if we got 0% return over the next 2 years. So in both scenarios there shows that the city would not be liable for any contributions. The second situation was basically a 4.5% rate of return, and that has been our historic return over the last 21 years, has been 4.5%. And so same thing, you'll notice the projected expenses are going to be the same payouts. And again, at the end of the day, no contribution is required by the city. The third scenario, which starts on page 219, does show a negative 5% rate of return. So over the next 2 years, 2 straight years of a negative 5% rate of return, same factors in all the other situations, still does show potentially that the city does not have to contribute anything to the funds. So kind of 3 different scenarios that we played out. We have also included in the background information just a little bit of how we compared to some of the other fire departments of our size. I know, speaking on behalf of the Marshall Fire Department, we take privilege in where we're at right now and being more towards the top of that list. Obviously not at the very top right now at 5807, but it is definitely a good recruiting tool for the city of Marshall, and we've been very blessed from the fire department side, where we've been able to recruit where a lot of other local fire departments are really struggling to get members to join. And then lastly, I did just include kind of just the history, the last 10 years of what the city has had to contribute over the past 10 years. So that is in the background as well. So.
Thank you, Ryan. This also was reviewed by the Ways and Means Committee, which also is recommending it being brought forward for action by the council. Sharon?
Ryan, you may not know, but just why the city contributions that in the history, why did that occur?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure on that, Sharon. So.
Yeah, and Russ, you and I both have history on that, and I think there was some, the calculations of how the required schedules were done are being done very well now because you have Hoffman and Ropes involved, and there was some corrections that needed to be made, and that was made at that time. Fair to say?
I think to answer your question, if my memory serves me, there's a lot of different, the rate of return, the number of firefighters, and it's a lot, because when the schedules are completed, they're completed June 30th, and you have to estimate what rate of return you're going to get for the last 6 months of the year. And I know when I was on the fire department and head of the Relief Association, that was always a crawl on my side, because we're not investors, we're not equipped to estimate what the rate of return in the fund is going to be. So the number of firefighters and the withdrawals, of course, if somebody retires or a benefit level, whatever, if God forbid, somebody gets hurt and you have to pay them out on a death benefit, all those things go into effect of when the city has to make a contribution, If I could be wrong, Bob, but I think it's all of those things that go into effect.
Correct, and that's what, affects, I guess, that benefit of basically, are we at a surplus or what is that liability per se? Correct, yeah.
Any other questions for Ryan? Comments from the Ways and Means Committee? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
And Mr. Mayor, I will be abstaining because of my past association with the fire department.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Amanda. Discussion on the motion. If not, we'll move to a vote.
Thank you, Ryan.
And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. So thank you, all the members that are here. We do truly value your service to the community and to the region. So thank you. You're also welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but
I figured you guys wanted to be at the whole meeting, didn't you?
Excellent.
yes.
How they're leaving?
Okay.
Training. Who's in charge of these guys? Leadership problem.
We'll move then to agenda item number 23. This would be consider the approval of the joint powers agreement renewal with Marshall Public Schools. Scott Vandermillen, Director of Community Services. Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. As indicated in your background information, we review this agreement on an annual basis. It's been a very successful partnership between the city and the school district. Oftentimes, there's little to no change in the agreement. Also indicated in your packet, we did redirect the supervision of the adult basic education program to the Director of Business Services. So Dion and I will work very closely on that in that transition. Other than that, there were simply just some grammatical edits from the city attorney's review. I would answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions? If not, is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion by John, seconded by Jim for the renewal of the joint powers agreement with Marshall Public Schools. Discussion on that motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes.
Thanks, Scott.
Agenda item number 24 is the James Avenue Camden Drive Reconstruction Project. We have a resolution declaring the cost to be assessed and ordering the preparation of the proposed assessment. And then secondly, we have the resolution for the hearing on the proposed assessment. Jason Anderson, Director of Public Works, City Engineer.
Thank you, Mayor. So this was one of last year's reconstruction projects on James Avenue between 4th and Camden Drive between James and South 4th Street. Complete reconstruction of the street sections as well as utility replacement. Another big piece of that project was taking stormwater piping across the golf course to outlet at the Redwood River. That tied in with the 4th Street project that was done the year before and completed some necessary storm sewer improvements. You've got the assessment roll in the packet, I believe, or what we've preliminarily put together. Looking for your approval to go ahead and send out notices and set the public hearing date. Included in the packet is a cost breakdown. You'll note that the wastewater fund paid for 7.9% of the project. MMU paid for about 12.5%. Surface water, 51.6%. Other city participation, 20.9%. And assessments to property owners, 7.2% of project costs. I can answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Any questions?
Jason, on the breakdown on the schedule, you've got in the top recommended street assessment, then it's, A, B, or C, and then recommended total assessment. Which one are the property owners going to look at? Recommended total assessment?
So when we mail out the notices to the property owners, it's much clearer. They don't get this spreadsheet. This spreadsheet is what we use kind of behind the scenes to put it all together. They'll get a very clear one-page letter that identifies what their proposed assessment would be. Looking at the spreadsheet.
And the only reason I'm asking, excuse me, Jason, is that because if our maximum is $5,700, there's a few that are over that, so they must have had some additional work done, driveways or something else?
You're correct. So we, the assessment policy pays for 12 feet of driveway width. Anything beyond that, we assess. We also assess sanitary sewer service line costs and any other sidewalk that's kind of private walk from the
Okay.
street to the home. So there are some other costs.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jason?
I just have a comment, and I go way back to, because I was part of that when the special assessment thing was started with East Marshall Street, and I believe it was North Fifth Street at the time, where we were getting dropped $23,000 assessments, proposed assessments. And now we're taking this project and roundabout numbers, 7% of this project is all that we're assessing to the homeowners. I know a lot of them think that's a lot when they see their numbers. I think that's hard work from the staff, hard work from everybody to get these special assessments down. Because I've always said assessments are a regressive tax, and this helps all of our citizens along the route, along these routes to keep this low. And that's partly as we'll come up with our tax levy talk here in probably about a half hour. Part of why when we discussed the levy is we've eliminated special assessments, but it had to go someplace. Someplace these bills have to be paid. So but I think we've done a great job of 7% of our projects are special assessments. I think that's great. I mean, Jason, you can say, I don't know what the state average is, but I think that's extremely low.
Yeah, you're correct. And we have made, and the council's made significant changes to the policy in recent years, which has moved that tax. You're correct. On this project, there's also Camden Drive, which does not have properties on one side of it that could have been assessed had there been a more normal street with properties on both sides. So 7% is even low by our typical measures, but you're correct. We have shifted the burden substantially as a community.
Yeah, good comment, Jim. And the policy does recognize the private benefit to the adjoining property owner, but also, and importantly, the public benefit to having well-maintained streets for all of the public and traffic.
Right.
So, other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Jim, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 25 is the bituminous chip sealing of various, back to agenda item number 24, I'd entertain a motion for the resolution for the hearing on the proposed assessment.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote.
That's October, isn't it? Do I need to?
And we'll close the voting. Motion passes. Okay, agenda item number 25, bituminous chip sealing of various city streets. We have the final change order and the acknowledgement of the final pay request. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. Our annual seal coating project went quite well, and it is complete now. The change order number 1 is a final reconciling change order, and then we've got the final payment to the contractor. You'll note that our budget was $210,581. The final total came in at $207,002, so just under our allotted budget. You'll note that change order 1 talks about a decrease of $15,000. That's because the bids came in over our budget. We had to do some working with the contractor to cut some routes and bring that in line. So we would recommend to approve the final change order and make final payment.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jason?
Just a comment on that, Jason, and that's just the increase in cost of materials that we had to reduce the linear footage, correct?
Yeah, they came in a little above what we were estimating,
Yep.
But that happens from time to time.
Predictable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And this also includes the assessed penalties because of the work done on Country Club Drive and Lion Street, correct?
Correct. Our budget was significantly higher than it has been in the past, and
Yep.
$22,000 of the budget was from penalties on Country Club Drive that we turned around and put into a seal coat on Country Club Drive.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Okay, we'll move then to agenda item number 26, the Broadmoor Valley Manufacturing Housing Community Redevelopment Program Grant Application, the request for city support. I'll call on Sharon Hansen, City Administrator.
Okay, if we recall, last year, there was discussion about city support for the Broadmoor Valley Manufactured Home Grant application, and some perspective or reporting that the city did not provide support. And that was true because we were not formally approached or requested to give support. So this year, there's another grant cycle, and the owner of Broadmoor would like to apply. The deadline, I believe, is the end of September. And he did, and you have the request in your packet, did formally request financial support. So staff, city attorney have been discussing areas where we could assist the grant, and it would be part of the grant application. He can utilize this letter and submit it, and it would likely enhance his grant application. So obviously the previous grant and just previous work on Broadmoor maybe elevates this grant without it, but staff is recommending that we provide the financial support as detailed in the letter. So it's a lot of infrastructure engineering perspective, so any additional questions specifically on what would be conducted could be answered by our Public Works Director. But this is our recommendation for the council tonight.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Jason, anything you want to add at this time?
Sure, I could just give a real quick overview of what the costs are. There is public storm sewer that cuts through the park. There's a ditch drainage way in the southeast corner of the park, and then it's piped through the park to Minnesota 23 and under the highway. We would propose that now is an excellent time for the city to partner with the park owner. If he does an infrastructure project, we would partner and cover the stormwater costs of our public main through the property. We would have the surface water utility participate in the same manner that it would on one of our reconstructs. And we estimate the value of that at $125,000. In addition to that, we're proposing to offer our wastewater department services to do some what we'll call I&I investigation, which will go in and do smoke testing, different things, different processes to try to identify if there's issues with the sanitary sewer system that we can resolve, issues of inflow and infiltration of stormwater. We suspect that there are, and we would help with that, and that's $25,000 estimated of staff time and some equipment. And then lastly, $10,000 of engineering staff time to just kind of help make sure we get the project where it needs to be.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. We'll open up for any questions.
Go ahead, John.
I say, just a comment to start off, I will be abstaining in this one because this action will be coming, possibly coming to Minnesota Housing Finance Agencies, and I'm on that board, so I will be abstaining. But if there's any questions regarding the program, I've got the information available if somebody has any questions on that.
Okay, thank you, John. Russ?
In his letter, Mr. Sherholt's letter, he has, we are requesting assistance from all sources, both human capital and monetary capital. We are not giving him any money at this point.
You want to explain that?
Yeah, it wouldn't be cash up front. It would be costs to
This work.
for an actual construction investment.
Okay.
And the sewer costs and the wastewater costs, that's all pretty much city staff time and effort. So no cash per se, but definitely a direct cash benefit with the surface water improvements.
Other questions?
Would this be, and I know it's different, but similar to how we helped out with the road in front of Hobby Lobby? Because I believe we did the engineering on that road too, correct, even though it was a private road?
That's maybe a little bit different because we actually took over that ring road as a public roadway easement and we did some other
Okay.
utility investments, but I'd call it a little bit different, but it is there's public infrastructure that goes through this park, and we see an opportunity to increase the pipe size. It would be beneficial to us to do it, and it's a great opportunity to partner now. And we can have the surface water utility do so in the same manner that it would on one of our other projects. Maybe it can cover some roadway costs above the pipe, do some of that stuff. So we come up with 125, maybe it'll be slightly more or slightly less.
But the benefit for workforce housing, if we make this a more desirable location to live is, I mean, we've always talked about workforce housing. So I think it's a good benefit in that sense to bring in workforce housing, as long as he's complying with the other requirements from the building department.
The other point, and you made this earlier, is the public benefit also includes both of these, both the stormwater as well as the identifying the source of any inflow into the sanitary sewer system. That benefits the city as a whole. So that's good. Any other questions? If not, you have the request before you. What's the wishes of the council?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Jim. Is there a second to that motion?
Seconded.
Seconded by Craig. Discussion?
Just a couple of things are at that point I just want to make you aware of is, first of all, this is a grant application, so it has to go through that process. If this is awarded and if the grant is accepted, there are additional restrictions that are put on the owner that the owner, I'm presuming at this point, is well aware of. Some of those is that it will remain as a manufactured home park. The rents will remain in the low to moderate income. The rent increases will be capped. There is a 5% cap on that. And any transfer or sale of the ownership of the park would have to be approved in writing prior to the sale by Minnesota Housing. That's just some of the criteria. There's actually a considerable amount of criteria in the overall conditions, but those are really the main ones that at this point, if this were awarded, that's what Mr. Sherholz would have to agree to.
Those conditions exist in the present grant that was given this year in 2022, the $500,000 grant. So those are carryover conditions.
Some of they're carryover conditions because he's had to, but that's just part of the grant application. Those restrictions exist.
And the present use of the present funds, Bolton and Menk has been retained as the engineer to help design some of the infrastructure. How far can you stretch $500,000 for infrastructure? That's the big question, and that's what's under review right now.
Yeah. And this whole grant process is really only for infrastructure. That's the intended use of the dollars that he is requesting in this application can only be used for infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll note the abstention. Agenda item number 28 is the resolution adopting the preliminary 2023.
Nope,
Oh,
27.
excuse me.
You're trying to move ahead.
I am. I'm sorry.
You just can't wait to get at that levy budget.
Number 27, consider the joint resolution for orderly annexation with Fairview Township. Dennis, my apologies. Go ahead.
The annexation has taken a turn for the better last Friday. You'll recall that in July, the city council passed a joint resolution authorizing the annexation of 80.52 acres of property. That'll be the location of a future solar farm. Fairview Township, however, objected to that joint resolution and did not sign the resolution. So I contacted the Municipal Boundary Adjustment Board, and there is a way that we could get the matter before the board to approve an annexation, but it would require a hearing at some future time where both city and township would have the opportunity to speak. On Friday, however, the township board agreed that they would sign a joint resolution if the city agreed to pay additional reimbursement or lost compensation for the township tax related to that property. Statute allows for payment up to 8 years' worth of reimbursement of lost taxes. That amount is $275.25 per year times the 8 years. So it's costing the city an additional $1,500 up front, but it'll be annexed into the city. The city will garner additional tax revenue to offset that substantially. So it is, and I received today the signed joint resolution from the township board. They held a meeting on Friday, September 9th, and signed it, and the original signed agreement is with the city clerk, ready for signature upon passage of this resolution. It would be the recommendation to approve joint resolution.
Craig?
Just a question on clarity, Dennis. I think in the fiscal impact, it says that our payment to Fairview would actually be $2,202 over the 8 years.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
$275 a year times 8 years is
Yep.
that $2,200
Okay.
figure.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Questions?
Yes.
Thank you for your work on this. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by John, seconded by Craig. Discussion? Not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, now, agenda item number 28. This is the resolution adopting the preliminary 2023 levy. Minnesota State statute does require that cities establish their preliminary levy by the end of September. This is our last, well, we do have one more regular meeting prior to the end of September, but this is the opportunity to establish that preliminary levy that cannot be exceeded. It could be decreased between now and the time that you would establish your final budget in December. City Council, as well as staff, have had numerous discussions, a substantial amount of work, numerous meetings related to the development of the 2023 budget and then the levy that would be needed to support that. So I would call on Director of Administrative Services, E.J. Mower, to present the results of some of those discussions as well as perhaps an option to consider. E.J.
Sure, thank you. Within the packet before you is the levy option that would be a 12.01% increase. At the work session earlier today, I did provide an option, one option, not option one, but one option to potentially reduce that to 9.04%. That proposed resolution can also be shown now on the screen by Stephen for what that amount would be ultimately. So leave it up to the council to decide between those options or any other option that you would like. But this is what would be submitted to Lyon County for presentation. There was a new law will take effect this year as far as what is presented to taxpayers on an individual basis. I have reached out to Lyon County and have not heard back yet for how that for sure will be implemented within the county, but we'll provide information to them for whatever they need as for the budget material as well. But what's before you in the packet is the 12.01% levy, which is a total of $8,474,818. And then also on the screen, and as was discussed at the work session, there's an option for an $8,249,818, which would be a 9.04% increase.
And EJ, the 9.04% increase would result in the tax rate being unchanged, or in other words, that would equate to the growth in the tax capacity in the community in the past year.
Correct. Obviously, it's a tentative number yet because of changes that could be made for homestead, et cetera, but based on what we're projecting right now, that would match the growth rate. So if your property did not change in value at all throughout the community, your taxes in theory then wouldn't change as well. Obviously with growth, there has been some change in just with property tax shifting. As the assessor has indicated, residential homeowners will likely be paying more in property tax going forward just because of the tax shift as far as the values go. But this would allow the same tax rate that was done for 2022 to be impacted throughout the community for 2023 for the city share.
Okay. Open it up for input from the council.
Well, I can always start. As I said earlier, well, as we talked tax levy, one of my big pushes was not to increase the tax rate, as EJ said. So our tax rate is staying the same. The value of your homes went up. And that's a really good thing. So, and we've worked, I think originally, Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like 20-some% that you get, the staff brought forward, which the staff knew that wasn't gonna float either, but they gotta start someplace when we work it down. Even today, when EJ came in at 12.1, it's like, that isn't gonna work. So we as a council and as a staff worked very hard to bring a preliminary levy of 9.04 without kicking the can down the road, causing future councils headaches because we didn't want to just accept the fact that this is somewhat what we have to do. So I do fully support the 9.04, keeping our tax rate to the city of Marshall the same this year as it was last year.
Other input? If there is no other input, you have a resolution before you. You have an alternate resolution that was also on the screen. I would entertain a motion for a resolution adopting the preliminary 2023 levy.
I move approval of the resolution adopting the preliminary levy showing an increase of 9.04%.
And I will second that resolution.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim. Discussion on the motion. If there's no discussion on the motion, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting.
Just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to agenda item number 29, Commission Board Liaison Reports. From mine, the Southwest Regional Development Commission did have their meeting this past Thursday, and as you can imagine, a lot of discussions on the preliminary levies from counties and cities, as well as the situation with townships and school districts. So that occupied a bit of their time during that meeting. So there will be a leadership transition within the current chairperson of the Southwest Regional Development Commission is the mayor of Pipestone, and there was a primary election, and he was number 3 in the primary election. So there will be a change in the leadership at Southwest Regional Development Commission. Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mine have not met, so I have nothing to report.
Okay. Amanda?
Planning Commission meets tomorrow. We'll be talking about, well, whatever. If you want to know, I was part of the comp plan task force, so we'll be talking more about reviewing the comp plan as presented and then giving the public a chance to review as well.
Okay, thank you.
It's exciting.
John?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion did meet. We had a presentation at this meeting, which is a little usually and very interesting. An individual talked about his and his wife's experiences with prejudice as far as religious prejudice. So it was a very interesting discussion. Also had a meeting with the Public Housing Commission. They've finally been able to resolve an issue that's been going on since 2018, which was part of failure of the adhesive on tile on the floors, primarily in the hallway. That has been resolved. The company is providing adequate tile and adhesive to have the work redone, so they're satisfied with the the outcome of that work. Although it took a while to get there, they're finally coming to a conclusion on that. few other items that took place. They reviewed the snow removal bid. They're going to be moving ahead on a contract for that. As far as sanitation, garbage removal, that type of thing, they're moving ahead on a 3-year contract on that. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you, John. Russ?
Busy couple of weeks. Adult Community Center has met, as we approved tonight, the LSS contract was approved, but we have also asked Katie and LSS to look at possibly a multi-year agreement with small increases every year, and we don't know if that's going to be a 3-year or 5-year agreement, whatever, so we're talking about looking at that. As we all know, Barb Lipinski is retiring after 21 years of service. Her open house is this Friday. And she had a couple of last-minute things that she wanted to get the building updated, but we got some window cranks replaced, and the painting of the bathrooms is not done. But she also brought to the board that the adults have contributed over $117,000 to facility improvements over the course of the year. So she was pretty proud of that. And again, just publicly wishing Barb a very happy retirement, and thanks for her years of service. Library board did meet last evening. They have hired 3 new employees, 1 in Ballatin who had worked part-time, and then 2 in Marshall. They've also updated their software to Envisionware, and that will going to make everything a lot easier for the work. Also on there, all their employees' computers, everything is operating on now Microsoft Windows 11, so everything has been updated. Final 2023 budget has been approved or recommended to be approved at 3.5% increase. Commissioner Grautman will take it to the county as well. We're also looking at now, part of that 2023 budget is to get rid of the van. So we're looking at maybe selling the van via the state website. I think Jim Marshall, one of his staff, is maybe going to assist with that, or else even locally. It's, believe it or not, I think it's 20-some years old. It's got almost brand new tires. I just put a new battery in it. It's the back seats, and the seats doesn't look like they've ever been sat in. So we're hoping to get $5,000 for it. We don't know, or they don't know. Another successful event during Sounds of Summer was the Friends of the Library had a book sale, and they took in a whopping $3,400 during the 3 days. So that was quite a bit of money, and they were very happy with that. And just a reminder of unveiling of the 150th book, as will be on October 6th with various people reading, experts, and I believe the mayor is part of that. Visit Marshall had a meeting. I missed the first part of it, but we talked about inclusive playground and acquired a grant for $28,000. Director, we talked about Sounds of Summer, 150th recap. The biggest thing there is that the Prairie Jam concert that Visit Marshall is sponsoring at SMSU on September 29th. Tickets are on sale on the website, and we hope to have a good crowd there. Looking for a stage sponsor yet, but their ticket sales are starting to improve. One of the things they did ask is, Mr. Mayor, and we requested you or the council again to enlarge the boundaries of the CVB board to the school district area, to consider that instead of just the city limits. They're having trouble getting members for the board, and when there are members, if we're missing 2 or 3 voting members, we don't have a quorum. So they've politely asked me to ask you again, or ask the council to please consider expanding the boundary of the CVB board, Visit Marshall board, to the school board district. And I think, and a reminder, they have a business after hours on October 6th, and I believe that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Jim?
I have nothing.
We'll move then to council member individual items. Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, to compliment our Parks Department again, primarily on our beautiful Memorial Park, and another great service on Sunday commemorating the 21st anniversary of the terrorist attacks on New York City, the Pentagon, and the field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. An excellent speaker, a veteran Air Force lady who did tremendous service. And I just want to remind people that if they don't have their uniform on, or you don't hear them speak in an area that they're identified, often we stand in the presence of pretty great people and we don't realize it. So we need to be grateful. And I also want to put a shout out to the third grade class leadership at Holy Redeemer. They haven't missed a year to come to the park with the third graders to bring them there to talk about them, about 9/11, to teach them about 9/11 and to appreciate all the things about our country and the good news and the bad news. So they do an amazing job, and I appreciate that. And the other thing I'd like to bring up is that there's been conversation about we maybe should revisit through our legislative and ordinance group, or starting out probably just with our administrative leadership, to look at our rental agreement for our facilities, just to make sure that we've got our bases covered if there are conditions and issues that we want to make sure that we have covered on the use of publicly owned facilities, that we're doing appropriate rentals and appropriate use, and that we have appropriate protections also for legitimate uses of our facilities, just to make sure that we don't have gaps or things in there. There's been concerns that are brought up, and I just want to, think it never hurts for us to look at our documents and at our agreements and make sure that we've got our things covered and that we're appropriate with them, and protecting people's rights also. So I'll just leave it at that. That's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Amanda, do you have anything?
I don't have anything.
Jim?
The only thing I'd like to remind people of is school's open, and as Jason will attest to, we don't quite have all of our crossing lights up. We didn't just paint lines in the middle of East College Drive to make them look nice. That is a crosswalk, so be aware of that as kids go to school. But be aware of the kids walking to school. Slow down in the mornings and let the kids get to school safely. That's all I have.
Russ?
In correlation with that, Jason, maybe you could look at, on Southview Drive, the right and left turn, the left turn arrows, they painted one that's turning into the bus parking, and they've had the parking, the crossing guard down there has had 2 or 3 vehicles try and pull in there with that left air turn arrow. So maybe they just need to erase that one and go beyond the island. So just take a look at that. The only other thing I had a couple constituents call me, and I wish Scott was still here, or else Dr. Meister. They were looking forward to receive the community brochure in the mail like they have in the years past. They did not receive it, and I wasn't aware of it until I came down here. They did not mail them. So was it a budget item? Would they just decide? I was just curious of how that decision was made and why it was made that it wasn't mailed out like normal. So I had a couple of constituents ask me about it. So that's all I have.
Okay.
I don't know if
You're going to follow up on that? or-
They have gone online. I know registrations are still being maintained, if not greater, but I have heard some feedback on that as well. So I will get you a better response when I check with Scott.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I got a number of items. First of all, this coming Tuesday, the 20th, is Welcoming Week, and that is sponsored by the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And it will take place out at Justice Park from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. There's going to be food, there's going to be games, there's going to be all kinds of interesting things going on, some entertainment. So this is an opportunity to go out and meet new members of the community that may have lived here for a while and you've never met. Find out who's all out there. This is open for the community to come out and just meet and greet, really. Find out a little bit about the city. There'll be a few tables, some information items up. But we're doing that on, we did it last year on a Saturday and ended up with a number of different conflicts of different things going on. And some at the school, some just around the city. So we're trying something different this year and putting on a weeknight and giving it a try for 5 to 7.
What was the location, John?
Justice Park. Justice Park, yeah. Somewhat along with that was pointed out by a couple of members of the community that, you drive into a lot of the communities and you see a welcome sign other than the one we've got on our pedestrian bridge, Marshall really doesn't have a welcoming sign anyplace. Just throw that out there if, sometime, probably not when budgets are so tight, or if a service group out there wants a project or something to do, somebody's out there wants to donate to that or whatever, it'd be nice to have a nice entrance sign coming into Marshall. And then the last item is kind of a reminder and an awareness. I know the police department is getting a number of calls, a number of comments. You know, this is political season, so we've got a lot more signs out there. And the location of those signs, as well as any other sign that you have. It could be, you know, your rummage sale sign, something like that. You cannot have a sign in the city right-of-way or in the highway right-of-way. That's a state law. The highway right-of-way includes the driving lanes, the inside-outside shoulders, ditches, and sight corners from the intersection. So primarily, this is a safety issue to keep the signs out of back away from the road, so you're not blocking those kids going to school, that walking on the sidewalk. You got a little kiddo walking along, you don't want to all of a sudden surprised but coming out from behind a sign. So the signs can be placed typically 12 feet from the curb towards the house, or on the from the, let's see, get it straight here. City street right-of-ways are typically 12 feet from the curb or on the boulevard, and so you cannot be placing the signs there. The landowner must consent to having the sign put on the public or on their private property outside of the right-of-way. And more importantly, unlawful signs will start to be removed. So they're going to take them off the right-of-way and remove it and probably just dispose of it. There's not really going to be I would say, a way of recovering it. I don't know, it's up to the police department or whoever picks it up, but expect if you don't get it moved and into a better location, it's going to get tossed. So just kind of that word out there for anybody out putting up signs. Again, we see it more from the political signs that this is the season where a lot of them pop up, but this is really any sign that's out there. So keep it out of the city right away. It's a major safety issue, and it's a blocking issue for the city, travelers, drivers coming through, pedestrians walking, whatever it is. So I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you, John. Russ, you have something?
John, just adding one thing to your sign thing. Utilities do not want the signs pasted, and those are mostly garage sale signs, put on their electrical street poles. Yeah.
Prefer not, especially in that, a lot of the poles now are fiberglass, so, and can tend to get broken up, ripped off, whatever, so, really just be thoughtful about where you put your signs.
Very good. Thank you, John. I'll just have two things. One is that we're still wrapping up really a successful summer of events. And one of those events, of course, was our 150th anniversary. And as Russ mentioned, there's one more event with the book unveiling that will be held in early October. But the 150th committee did have their final meeting yesterday. And it was really a time to kind of review all the things that happened, starting with early in the year in May with the community bingo, and then culminating with the book signing and all the events in between. So just a public thank you to all of the volunteers that served on that 150th committee. No one was asked to be on this committee. These were all people that came forward on their own and said, I want to be part of it. I want to volunteer. I want to put in my time. And all of them brought a perspective that really resulted in a nice celebration of Marshall's 150th year. Secondly,
Any discussion about Sharon doing bingo calling again?
She wants,
But I hear
she wants
kicks butt
a,
at the dunk tank.
Yeah, I heard that too, that she's a crack shot at softball.
I say, I think, some hand throwing or whatever, softball throwing.
we could discuss a do-over on
Twins
that.
are looking for somebody in the bullpen, by the way.
They could.
Secondly, and Craig brought up the 9/11 memorial event, and one thing I would add to that, and Craig, you may want to expound on this, after the formal event was done, and people were starting to disperse, a motorcycle club from Eden Prairie showed up, and Craig did a marvelous job of presenting, unrehearsed to this group that was
Well, it's
there.
rehearsed. I've given that talk a
Right.
zillion times.
So he really did a nice job of discussing the, not only the nuts and bolts of the background of the park and how it happened, but why it happened.
Right.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank you a lot, and I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes on that. First of all, I think that's the third time that group's been here. Their leadership is amazing, and there's a couple of the members there that I've had multiple contacts. They presented a PowerPoint that I can do in 20 minutes or an hour and 45 minutes, depending on the group and how much they want. And the one gentleman's sat through that twice at utility conferences, but they come out for a number of reasons, and part of it is the community, but it's also the beam. But there's another thing, you never know when you're standing in the presence of greatness, because soldiers and heroes don't dress always like soldiers and heroes. And my wife and daughter and I were camping at Plum Creek County Park by Walnut Grove over the weekend, end of last week and over the weekend. And there was a couple. My wife is a bigger social butterfly than I am at the campground. She always has to make friends with the neighbors and find out who they are. So we met this wonderful couple from Texas. And I spoke with the gentleman for just a little bit and found out that he and his father were both extended veterans. And so we talked about, my wife introduced them to the schedule that there was going to be a 9/11 commemorative ceremony in town, and was very descriptive about the park. And so they were there. And afterwards, I had a chance to interact with him. And again, that park was a gift, because he broke down a little bit and left the weight there, which is pretty cool. And he's probably the fifth or sixth person that I've been able to meet personally that has done that. So to everybody in the community that pulled together, and this community is amazing, because when Mark Claith and Mayor Burns and I first talked about that beam coming back, which was before the first anniversary of 9/11, we envisioned something similar to the very center circle in that park, but it's just the beam proper and maybe something in granite close to it, but nothing like what this community put together. And I'm pretty proud, and the community needs to be pretty proud, but I'm more grateful than I am proud for all the people that have pulled together to make that what it is. And they're as much an unsung hero as anyone, because they did it quietly and with great strength. And that park has reverence beyond description. And it's beautiful to know that people can bring a load there and leave some of it, and then pick something else up that has greater value and leave with it. So thank you to everybody that's had a hand in that and is going to have a hand in that to continue, because that's going to be there a long time after we're all gone, and it's going to continue to have that value. So thank you.
thank you, Craig. We'll move then to staff reports. Sharon?
I've noticed since the bingo calling that I have not been invited to do any public speaking engagements. So I guess I made an impression.
Maybe we can go throw eggs at Halloween.
I did have a privilege of dunking Dr. Meister and Councilmember DeCramer a couple times, and for the record, they said they would not hold that against me in my upcoming evaluation.
We'll
So-
see.
Yeah, well, it was a little,
So, a couple really good positive things. Today, we did get to tour Border States and their new warehouse out on Channel Parkway, and they had quite a few staff there from Border States and upper leadership. They do $1 billion worth of transactions on an annual basis. So very successful company, and they really like that location, and it allows them to expand their customer base. And it was, I think the value we said it was going to increase was about 650 some thousand. So it wasn't a huge project, but very easy for that type of facility to be located somewhere else. So really great support from City Council on tax abatement and so forth, and a really nice project. Last week was North Central International, who did some improvements. The EDA did facade improvement application for them too, which is just a small part of their improvement. But, you know, again, really good commitment to Marshall, and the comments in the newspaper from NCI was pretty fantastic about what they think they can do in the Marshall area. So I want to comment on that. Indoor rec study, we've got a on-site date, and we're going to kick that off September 26th. We've communicated with sports associations. We've got some meetings set up with SMSU, and of course YMCA and the school district. So that's going to be important as we go forward. And a couple other items. I think CVB board is actually full. I don't know if there's any openings, and I'll check with that on Stephen, and I know that there has been that request, but I think they do not have any openings, so they have a full board right now. And then, John, I did send you a calendar appointment for Thursday we're going to meet with Public Housing Director, and we're going to talk a little bit about street construction, because he's brought that up in the past, and try to have a more annual meeting with the director there. I don't think we're going to be talking about tile and adhesives. I think we'll talk about
I
big
think
picture
he's
things, but
happy about that.
from my perspective, I think the city has, well, I can speak for myself, I think we've been supportive of Mark, and in return, we don't hear a lot of public housing issues, so probably does a fairly good job. So just want to convey we're kind of on the same team, and I think it'll be a good meeting for both of us, so.
Just on that, I know we did talk about that at our meeting. I am probably going to be there. It's a little tentative. If I get back in time, Jenna will not be able to make it.
Yeah,
So
that's fine.
Maybe just you and Mark, but.
Yep, no, we can handle it, so. But that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Jason?
I don't have a lot. I'd probably just thank you to everyone who's located on one of our reconstruction projects for their patience. We have, everybody's been very, very patient with the contractors in the city as we work on those projects. The West Lion project downtown, which should be opened up hopefully in the next couple of weeks. There's a few things to tidy up. South First, Greeley-Williams, hopefully a lot of gravel down by the end of this week, and we're just on Williams doing utility work, and then we can start building sidewalks, curb, and roads. So we're in a good spot. Halber, we should be paving this week, so we'll start to see things come together, which is, it's good. It's been a long summer, but productive one, not much rain, so it helps for construction. Meeting with the FAA tomorrow morning in Marshall. They're coming down to talk about our CIP, which is great. They'll also meet all day with other airports at our airport as well to talk about their CIPs, so that'll be nice to meet with them in person. City wastewater staff and myself also met with the MPCA recently to discuss our discharge permit. So that was good. We expect a letter response from them hopefully by the end of the week. So we'll keep the discussion going as we work through those issues. That's all I've got.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Any questions for Jason? Dennis?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The big three left. Annexation, number one. We've acted tonight. That joint resolution will then be submitted to the Municipal Boundary Adjustment Board. They have 30 days to act on it, but there is no hearing necessary. They should approve that. I had spoken with MRES attorney yesterday. I thought it'd be another 6 or 8 weeks before we would finalize that. I thought there'd be a time delay in getting it back from the township, but it's all been approved. We've approved it tonight, so within 30 days, that annexation will be completed at the state level. Broadmoor Valley, number two. Recently spoke with the Attorney General's office. There is some consideration being given by all parties as to can we come up with some large overall global settlement that benefits everybody involved, and they're looking at retaining a mediator to see if we can mediate a settlement for the Attorney General, for the outstanding tenants remedies action, which has been concluded, but I'm not sure where they are in the court decision, and then our local abatement issue, and then somehow wrap in all of the grant award and the grant application. So that's encouraging. I spoke to the Attorney General's office last week. And then the third one, Helena, if you've noticed, all of the siding has been removed from the building, and I believe that's the asbestos abatement matter. And I know, Jim, you're the one who pointed out, that's where the asbestos was in the siding, so that's off. So I guess I'm expecting the D&G Excavating, who has the contract for the demolition and removal. I'm looking at them to get started any day on that removal.
Equipment out there now.
There is, okay. Well, you've checked more recently than I have. You're a day or two ahead of me, so that's good. So, thank you.
Okay, any questions for Dennis? If not, you have the remaining items, including the administrative brief, the building permits, and the listing of upcoming meetings. I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Amanda to adjourn. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And the motion passes. We are adjourned.